Very good. So Carsten, welcome, and thanks for your time today for the executive interview. We know each other already some time, and you've been the winner of the supply chain executive election last year. So we did a nice interview at that time. So for a start, can you explain a little bit the scope and the impact of the supply chain organization of LEGO?
Yes, I can. And first of all, thank you for inviting me back again. It's truly fantastic to be part of this event again. So you could say supply chain's role in LEGO is, in my role, is quite big. We even call it operations because it consists of, you could say, both globally and regionally, everything within manufacturing, distribution, short and long-term planning, S&OP, engineering, R&D, quality, safety, facility management, and procurement across the company. So it's a broad scope.
Indeed, yeah. So and if you look a little bit more to the manufacturing and the supply chain side, how big is the impact? How large is the impact that this organization has on the rest of the organization?
The impact is huge because we are a very consumer-driven organization, of course. So what we do in the factories and in the operations play a massive impact of actually how we perform the year. So we need great products, we need great marketing, we need great sales channels, but at the end of the day, we don't get the right mix of product out to the kids and the parents, especially around Christmas, and then we don't succeed as a company. So impact is big. It's also a big part of the organization itself.
Yeah. So and in terms of let's say locations and staff, can you give a rough idea about that?
Yeah, in operations across LEGO, we have roughly 10,000 employees, where 8,000 is hourly, and then we have 2,000 where we have a big majority of that sits in our R&D and element and materials and machine development, etc., etc. As we have a pretty big novelty portfolio each year, it requires a lot of R&D, but also for the more long term, as maybe we'll talk about later, the sustainability journey, we have a big staff sitting in there as well. And then the way we have set up our footprint, you could say we have a global look at everything, and the responsibility of the factory sits with me, but the factories are very regional anchored. So a factory in China is really producing for the Asian market or the Chinese market, the same in Europe and US as well. But the beauty about the setup is also they are all fully standardized and our portfolio is global. So if there is needs, or like we have seen this year, also a need to support each other, we have that flexibility as well. But they are very regional focus in the day-to-day to ensure we get the products out to the children.
Okay, that sounds good, yeah. So one of the topics of this conversation is the customer centricity, and you have a long career with LEGO. You're more or less a part of LEGO by now, I think, and you not only worked in supply chain and operational roles, but also in the more commercial roles like the SVP shopper marketing and channel development role.
Yeah.
So how important is to have a, let's say, more commercial role for an operations person for understanding what customer centricity is and how the other side of the organization works?
I can definitely talk for myself, and there might be different formulas for others, but I think for me personally, but also for the company, it has been massively important and a big benefit for me actually to be, first of all, I've been living globally, so I also have a culture aspect. I've been living in America, I've been living in Asia, I've been living in Central Europe and the western part of Europe. So understand different cultures when you want an organization to perform is crucial, I think. But then to set up the right strategy and understand actually what do we need to serve, because ops we need to serve, and in our journey is to serve the children and the shoppers, to make them happy and please them with the right product at the right time. For me to be in that specific role that I was in for 2 years plus, which was shopper marketing and channel development, it was really in the front line, you could say, understanding customers, consumers, the whole e-commerce journey. What was happening back then about omni-channel, what is the different dynamics, was a massive help coming back into operation in this role to actually set the strategy with with an offset of what do I believe is going to happen with the understanding in shoppers and consumers. So I can only recommend that to become a good CEO or a CEO that can support the company strategy, have a strong end-to-end interest, but also seek the opportunities to actually be out in the field and get a deeper understanding. So fantastic learning for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, and unfortunately we see that happen more and more. That top executives spend some time in different columns of the organization to bridge the gaps.
Yeah,
and make it a truly end-to-end operation. With the common focus of the organization towards the customer and the end user of the product. Yeah. So I think about a week ago, the first half year figures came out, yeah, Lego mentioned the strong growth in sales and the strong growth in e-commerce, which is not a surprise, I think, as well. But also the government forced the enclosure of the Mexican factory. Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about how Lego dealt with the surprise event earlier this year and how they managed to sustain their business?
Yeah, definitely, and it's super relevant. First of all, I'm super proud of our results that we have managed to, still secure growth and reach many more children and shoppers out in the world, which is our ultimate purpose. But there's absolutely no doubt going into 2020, what I thought would be the agenda was slightly different. You could say overall, the strategy we have put in place, both in operations and also as a company a couple of years ago, have shown us it was super relevant. We had a big focus on particularly e-commerce and the omni journey, the shopper journey. What we learned in COVID-19 is we needed to accelerate our thinking. So there it was about speed of getting more capacity and actually to be able to serve and help some of our customers. But luckily, we had a foundation and a starting point we could accelerate from. Then our supply chain, you could say, if we didn't have the forced lockdowns in our factory, in particularly in Mexico, but actually also in China for a period of time, our supply chain would actually have been okay. You are in the execution room every day, even myself, ensuring, we are on top of the things. But the reliability and the flexibility and how it supported our system actually made us go through that quite well. But then we had a close down, particularly in Mexico for 2 months. And that the impact was quite big because at the same time, our demand was actually increasing dramatically overnight. So it was about, okay, how can we deplete inventories in the right smart ways very, very quickly? And also how then we ramped up our other factories, as I talked about, in the rest of the world overnight, basically, to max capacity, getting more staff in. But at the same time, they were also hit by COVID-19 and a lot of restrictions. So it was about creating a super, super safe environment for all our employees so we can actually interact and make it safe to come to work. So we ramped up, you could say, our factories in China and in Europe to max while we were depleting inventory. And then coming out of July, I would say we are back to normal. We have recovered what is lost in the retailer inventory, our own inventory, and we are back to normal. So we come out of it quite strong, but it required heavy execution focus from all of us and one team approach really to make this happen. One global team that pulls together has been the key for us.
So and generally in your business, you let's say over the summertime you ramp up for Christmas period. Yeah. Is that still the case, or do you have, let's say, a almost 365 days Christmas this year?
This year is going to be the unusual year, because you're right. It's typically in August we really start ramping up to full capacity for the Christmas season, and now we did it during April, May, and with the demand we're seeing, which we are very happy about. It will be a Christmas for a long time. I foresee the factories running almost full capacity for the next 4 to 5 months.
Okay, that is good news.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have, and it's also good that you have been able to and that you are able to serve the customer with the product that they would like to have. So that's also an interesting thing. So one of the other things, Mark Engel, recently the CCO from Unilever. And your predecessor on the supply chain executive election He said that during large disruptions, and the pandemic is one of them, but there are many more, agility beats forecasting. Is that something you agree with, and how did you deal with that?
Definitely in the situation of the pandemic when it was really and the lockdowns, it was about agility and speed. So you could say just ramping up e-commerce, it was about making a decision today and making it happen tomorrow. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But forecasting, I think, is still important, even in this situation, because you still need to be able to react. You need to be able to forecast. So that we had capacity available in the other side was due to great forecasting as well, also last year about what capacity you need. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good mirror for me about having strong forecasting, having strong scenario planning, but when you execute, it's speed, agility, and really go into fast decision making is absolutely crucial.
Okay. Yeah,
and I would maybe add, if I can, sorry, just add one. I think this team approach of having one team that's in it together, have a culture where it doesn't matter if you sit in Asia, Europe, or US, we are in for the same goal. That was easier for us to do because we had that mindset.
Yeah, okay. So that brings me also to the question, so what are the learnings from the last 6 months, and probably more important, what are the learnings to define the ideal supply chain professional? Did that change over the last 6 months?
I think there's both how you design the ideal operations and then the individuals. I think if we take the individuals first, I think my view on good supply chain leaders or good ops leaders is probably this about execution, speed, and agility is going to play a bigger role, because I don't think even if you find a good vaccine for, COVID-19 that we all hope for, there is a lot of other disruptions out there that you need to relate to. So It's going to be a world of disruptions. Is it the shoppers? Is it the retail landscape? Is it political landscape? You need to be able to maneuver on that. So I think that will play a bigger part than maybe in the past. It was more strategy and long-term vision. If we take our operations footprint and strategy, we on purpose did not go in the middle of the pandemic heat moment and say, now we need to change everything. Because we also need to make sure what we're changing have a strategic fit for purpose in the future. So what we have done now the last 3 to 4 months is take a deep dive to say, where can we actually become stronger and better, where we can do things even better. And some of that is in the execution engine room. And then there is a few strategic choices we're discussing right now. Do we want to do something even better when it comes to responsiveness and flexibility in our factories? Maybe we need a little bit more capacity, etc. But it's not going to be a strategic, completely do-over of our strategy. It's just amplifying what's in it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that during a period of disruption, you still find the time to think about strategic things for the future at the same moment. So often people are completely flabbergasted by the event and run around, and you have been able to do that as well, but also to take a step back with your team and have a look, okay, what can we learn now already from it, and do it better tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or next year.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's for us, the key, of course, in the April, May was very much in the execution room, full focused. But already in May, we started up 7 streams and say, so this is our main learnings. And in 3-4 weeks, I'm going to discuss this with our board so we can actually start executing already now.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So also in the first half year figures is that Lego doubled their visitors to 100 million people on the e-commerce platform. And there is still a strong focus on opening stores, especially in China. So what kind of impact does that have on the supply chain, and definitely on the agility of the supply chain?
Yeah, it definitely does. And we felt it big time in April, where there was a massive shift to particularly e-com. But I would say, luckily, good. We had it in our strategy. It's something we've been working on, this shift to e-com, and how do we embrace the omni shopper. I think it's a better word, because brick and mortar will still be relevant, but the share of e-com will definitely grow. So we've been working on that. We saw a massive lift in demand, But since we had been working on it, it was actually more about adding capacity. But our strategic roadmap will not change. It's probably just moving forward a little bit in timing. So I think we were set up for it, but it requires some good execution again in the spring. But we are set up for the fall as well.
Okay. Yeah. And indeed, you know, you don't focus on the e-commerce channel. You focus on the omni-channel while you're opening stores as well. So it's a mix of the both that make the product probably successful and the company successful, and not only focusing on one.
And maybe coming back to when I have a philosophy: never make big strategic decision in the heat of the moment, because you could say April or May, the share of e-com across many categories, right, increased to 40, 50, 60%. But as shop open, we have seen that number also dropping, but not down to where it was before. It's still going to be higher, as we probably have a new baseline. So I think it is important to take that time and just see what's really happening before you make big strategic changes. But you need to act quickly when you see these movements. But I don't overreact in the moment of heat. That's probably one of my key learnings as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you look to supply chain in general, and digitization of the supply chain, it's an important development. So can you tell a little bit more about what does that mean for Lego and what you're doing around it?
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt digitization will be for the next years a key enabler for us to be successful. One area is, you could say, about forecasting and agility, understanding what's happening on the shelf and the easiness for us as shoppers to change channel. We need much more analytics in that field, predictability from a big data point of view to foresee some of these changes. You cannot do that manually anymore. You simply need to rely and have a system around that to be able to predict. Otherwise, I don't think we have a fighting chance to reach the shopper where they truly are going to do the final purchase. So that's a big focus area for us. But also within manufacturing, you know, the innovation space, the requirements of newness from all of us, right? We want something new all the time. Kids want to be entertained. We need to come up with new innovations. And here, again, digitalization plays a big part of that. How can we use smart robotics, AI technologies in production, both to be efficient, but also to be able to provide new innovations that's truly needed to keep kids and shoppers entertained and attractive in the years to come.
Does that also mean that you attract more, let's say, tech-savvy millennials, guys and girls that really grow up with computers and know how to handle data and where to look for it?
Yeah, even in a engineering-heavy traditional company as we are, with 80+ years legacy and it's about molds, yes, we do. We have a lot more data science also coming into ops, much more millenniums actually to help us, also to embrace. Come on, I've been here for 20 years, right? I could be a little bit traditional sometimes. So I need that push as well. So I think we see a lot more of that, and we can see the benefit of that mixture between, you know, understanding the deep philosophy behind the Lego brick and our values, but then embrace that with the new millenniums thinking and what's actually what kids and millenniums are looking for. So yes, we see both people that wants to join us, but also we are pulling much more in these fields as well. Yeah.
And I think over the years, Lego become an interesting company again to work for, and it's growing rapidly. So that's nice.
That's nice.
So on the last point that I would like to touch on during this interview is the sustainability and the circular business. They are also getting more and more important, and I know that Lego is also involved in that. So can you tell a little bit more from a supply chain manufacturing point of view what you have been doing over the last years and where the future might lead to?
And if you even ask me the question, which one is my biggest headaches, it is probably in this field, because this is a super important field to invest heavily in and actually adapt your supply chain. It's not going to be something nice to have. It is going to be a license to operate in the future. I'm convinced about that. So our big focus has different lenses on it. There is very much about how do we make our operations more sustainable. So less CO2, less water consumption, renewable energy, we invest heavily in that to optimize that constantly. We have clear targets around that. Then there's the product angle, where we also definitely want to even go further on the sustainable journey, get rid of everything single-use of plastic, have a circular economy in our products, make sure that whatever is used and at some point will be waste is recyclable, go into the right channel. So that's a big, big focus, particularly within packaging materials right now. The last part is then about our core brick, which in itself is actually quite sustainable because it's reused from generation to generation. So luckily, even it's a plastic, it doesn't end in the nature that quickly. It's used between generations. But still, how can we make a circular economy within the brick? Some of it could be new material types, but it could also be systems where you can actually donate your bricks when you're done with them and it's recycled into other generations. So I think our sustainability agenda is huge. It's something we're going to invest 100 millions in the next years, because it's not something we would like to do. It is something we want to do.
Okay, that sounds good, yeah. And then I think I agree with you that it's a license to operate, especially when you focus on the younger generation as a let's say a toy maker. They are definitely much more aware than our generation on the environment, so they will look for toys and products that will sustain their life in the future.
Absolutely.
And their world that they live in. So last question, Carsten. Are there any things that you would like to share with us during this conversation that we didn't touch on?
Yes, there is maybe one element. You could say the people, the culture. What culture do you want to drive in your teams? And you could say, Lego, we have a culture. All companies, of course, have described a vision and our people promise or whatever we call it. But I think in the situations where you want speed, agility, and quick decision making, if you don't have one team around you who's really with you the whole way, and you have built that trust, and it's very, very clear now we're in the execution, and people are able to follow, they're able to challenge, and able to execute together, you fail. So I think this part of building a strong operations is also how do you build that culture in your teams? What is it you believe in that's right? And for me, even we're regional and big, we are one team and we only succeed together. So I think that element will also play a bigger role in the future, or should.
Yeah, it's definitely always about, it's not one man show in the supply chain. So you depend on a lot of people and how they work together. And also how they interact with other companies and other departments in the company. So communication and empathy is a big thing in supply chain. I agree with you, but that's part of my job to find that out. So, okay, Carsten, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot again for the information that you shared with us, and hopefully we meet soon again.
Definitely. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.